What is up, guys? Mcdoubles back again with a brand new video, and this time what I have for you guys are the best melee starting builds for Project Ascension. So the reason I decided to make this video is because a lot of people have been asking me, Mcdoubles, what build do I go for? What abilities should I start with? And there are a few resources out there, but I decided to make my own because I feel like I might have a little bit of a different opinion on what is the best, what you should go for, and also the philosophy behind rolling for your abilities. How much should you go for? What is truly the best to start with? And can I make it without the perfect starting build? The answer is yes, for a bit of a spoiler. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you do, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Let's begin. Alright guys, we're going to start off. First melee build on the list is going to be if you start with Sinister Strike and Eviscerate. Now this will not come as a surprise to anybody who's played on the server or seen any of my videos in the past. Sinister Strike is an incredible ability, namely because of its ability to be used with a two-handed weapon. Now, when you use a two-handed weapon with Sinister Strike, it will do more damage than if you used it with a one-handed weapon. You would be aiming to use a slow, very high damage two-handed weapon to get the most damage out of Sinister Strike that you possibly could, and due to its spammable nature, you would be able to pump out a ridiculous amount of damage. The reason we take Eviscerate with this build is specifically so that you have a strong ability to use those combo points on that you generate. If I'm honest, all you truly need for a Sinister Strike build is Sinister Strike, and depending on the abilities you get later on, it can alter your playstyle completely. Let's go ahead and take a look at a character in-game, and let's look at some of the abilities and some of the builds you might go if this were to be your start. Okay guys, so as you can see here, we have Normie Boy, and he is going to be our puppet to look at Sinister Strike and Eviscerate build options. So, as you can see, all we need to make this build work is Sinister Strike, obviously, and Eviscerate. The other abilities you random most likely will not matter as much if this is the core that you're going for. Now, when you take a build like this, you're going to want to focus on the Combat Rogue tree. And you're going to want to pick up every single talent that will make your Sinister Strike cheaper or stronger. This is going to include talents like Improved Sinister Strike. You're also going to want talents like Blade Twisting, which increases the damage of SS by 10% and gives your damaging melee weapon attacks a 20% chance to daze your target. Those are just a couple of examples of things you would want to get for sure if you were to be running a Sinister Strike build. Now, there's a couple ways you can take this. You can hope to get Wind Fury at level 30. If you were to get Wind Fury, which is a level 30 enhancement shaman ability that, as it says here, imbues your weapon with the wind, each hit has a 20% chance of dealing additional damage equal to 2 extra attacks, which deal 70% of your main hand's damage with a two-handed weapon plus extra attack power, which will scale with level. Obviously, everybody wants to go for Wind Fury weapon that plays a melee build, but on a two-handed build, it's especially strong because of how much extra damage your two-handed weapon will provide you. So the extra hits off Wind Fury weapon are going to hit for even more than it would have if you were, for example, dual wielding. Now, the other way that you could take this build, which is less of a, I would call the first option more of a bursty approach, is a more cool and calculated approach where you basically try to play what a combat rogue was supposed to be in the original iterations of World of Warcraft. However, you take it in a direction that obviously still uses a two-handed weapon and focuses on hitting as hard as you can. Keep in mind, there is a difference between hitting hard consistently and bursting all at once. With the first one, you're going to be spamming Sinister Strike, spamming your Eviscerate whenever you can get it off, and just praying for those Wind Fury crits so you can knock people out instantly without really doing much else. Now, the second way you could go would be if you were to random abilities along the lines of Execute. Grabbing Execute is an incredible ability with a Sinister Strike build because of how much damage it's going to do, and it gives you another ability to use that does not cost the same type of resource as your main spammable. Now, keep in mind, the two builds mentioned are not mutually exclusive. It's very possible for you to find Wind Fury and find Execute. If you were to do that, you would be incredibly strong. But I think it's important to show that you don't need every single ability to be perfect in order to have a successful build. So I'm going to be narrowing everything to give you a better idea of where you can go with the random abilities that you get. But keep in mind, you can combine these things, and it will most likely be far stronger than if you were not to. Now, some other solid options for an SS build could be in the form of Heroic Strike, as well as in the Survival Hunter tree, Raptor Strike. Now, these are strong because they do not share the global cooldown that SS has. What this basically means is that you can use Sinister Strike at the same exact time that you use Raptor Strike or Heroic Strike. This is going to give you a lot of added burst, and neither of those two options use the same resource as Sinister Strike. Now, this is all good and simple, but it's very important to understand just a few follow-up abilities that you might want to go for if you choose to run a Sinister Strike build. This is going to come in the form of, as you see here, Slice and Dice, a 1 AE ability. Keep in mind, if you have 1 AE hanging, you can use your Dice of Destiny to roll for a 1 AE ability. That's very, very efficient for a Sinister Strike build, as many of the abilities you want do in fact cost 1 AE. That would include things like Rupture, another semi-decent ability to go for, less bursty, but if you plan to do any kind of raiding, Rupture could be very nice to have on boss fights. It can also be good if you know you're going to be in a fight that lasts a while. Let's say you random abilities that allow you to stay in the fight for a lot longer than most people. Rupture could be decent, and La Piece de Resistance would be Kidney Shot. This is very good if you don't have any other stun. Quite frankly, it's still good if you do have another stun to layer it with, but Kidney Shot is very good because it gives you another thing to spend your combo points on once again, just like Slice and Dice, just like Rupture, but it's a stun, and the stun is going to give you that window that you need to take somebody out. Okay guys, so another very good build that many of you were probably expecting would be the Backstab and Eviscerate combo. Now, there's not going to be as much to go over with this one because it really does have the same criteria behind it as using a Sinister Strike Eviscerate combination, with one big difference, and that is if you choose to go with stealth. Now, I highly recommend if you go the Backstab route that you have stealth. This is because Backstab takes a lot more skill to play than Sinister Strike, because getting yourself behind the target that you're attacking can be incredibly difficult. This is for a variety of reasons. Number one, if you are anything but EU, you're going to have ping issues, and so that's going to make it very difficult to get your backstabs off. Number two, if your opponent is aware that you are a backstab build, and they will be after the first or second backstab, they can just twirl their character in a circle, and that will prevent you from actually doing any damage at all. But this can be prevented if you have a stun, like traditional rogues would have, where you can Kidney Shot them or Hammer of Justice them, and then lay down the backstabs after that. Now, stealth plays into this because it's going to allow you to get that first attack, and that's going to be paramount with a backstab build. It also lets you capitalize on dagger requirement of backstab by allowing you to pick up the ambush ability and then use Shadow Dance on top of that. So let's go ahead and jump in game and take a look at some of the talents you might want if you were going to grab a backstab build. Okay guys, so right off the bat, one of the main talents you're going to want to look at is going to be anything involving stealth, because we're going to go over the stealth build specifically since it is the most unique version of it, and the other version of it that does not use stealth, you really can just go look at the Sinister Strike part of this video to really figure out what abilities you should be getting. Other than that, of course, you would be looking for just the backstab talents. However, with the stealth build, you're going to want Camouflage and you're going to want Master of Deception. Now, I'm going to go over the talents rather fast because you can read them on your own time. By and large, you're going to want anything that makes your backstab stronger, and you're going to want to get Ambush. In the Assassination Rogue tree, you have Ambush. It requires it actually at level 18. Getting Ambush is going to be the most important thing to attain if you want to have the most overpowered build possible. But as you can see from my videos, you don't have to have Ambush to have an effective backstab build. Some of the things you want to go for would play hand in hand with things that I already went over in the Sinister Strike build, like Rupture and Kidney Shot and Slice and Dice. However, because we took stealth, you might want to go for things like Cheap Shot and Garrote. In fact, those are going to be some of the best things you could possibly get if you do not get Ambush. Now, some talents to take into consideration with the stealth build would of course be Master of Subtlety. This is a massive increase to your damage, and it'll make your backstab hit harder when you use it from stealth. If you're not going to go with the ambush route, at level 60, I highly recommend getting both Shadow Step in the Subtlety Rogue tree, and in the Combat Rogue tree, I recommend getting Surprise Attacks. This is going to increase the damage of your backstab by 10% and make your Eviscerate unable to be dodged, and Shadow Step will increase the damage of your next ability, Rogue ability that is, by 10%, and it acts as a gap closer. Keep in mind that if you go with the ambush route, Shadow Dance is the way to go at level 60. Shadow Dance will allow you to use your ambush outside of stealth for some massive damage, so you'll be spamming ambush instead of backstab, and you're going to hit even harder than you could ever imagine. Keep in mind, with every way that you take a backstab build, you're going to want the Slaughter from the Shadows talent. Okay guys, the next build, and possibly the strongest build on this list, is the Rend+Overpower build. Now, this is a very interesting one because you don't really pop off until level 25, which can make leveling this build feel lackluster, and it can even make you doubt the power level of it far before you ever reach level 60. Keep in mind, though, that in order for this build to be as efficient as possible, you are going to want to grab the Battle Stance ability, as it will allow your Rend to crit, which it will not be able to do otherwise. However, we will go over all possible additions to this build once we take a look at it in-game. Okay guys, so the core of the build of course is going to be Rend and Overpower, and like I said, Battle Stance is going to make your build far stronger than if you did not have it. But there are more abilities that you could pick up to make this build as efficient as possible, namely Charge. Now Charge can be used with everything I put on this list so far, as it is just a very powerful gap closer. However, with this build, it also serves as a rage builder, which can be used to make your Rend and Overpower combo just a little bit more efficient. However, if you do not happen to pick up Charge, you should keep in mind that more rage abilities is a bad thing because you need to save your rage for Rend and Overpower. Now, sometimes this won't be a problem, and you might be well off with another ability like Heroic Strike just to dump excess rage if you see yourself capping out on it very often. So first and foremost, if you took Battle Stance, you should get improved Rend. However, if you did not take Battle Stance, you should not rely on Rend as a source of damage, and instead, you should look at Rend solely as a way to spam Overpower. With that being said, you should always take the Deep Wounds talent with this build, as it is incredibly strong with a two-handed weapon, and you will be playing a bleed-focused build with the Rend and Overpower core. We are also going to want Impale. Impale is going to increase the critical strike damage bonus of your direct damage warrior abilities by 20%. This is very strong for an Overpower build, as it directly affects Overpower, and makes your critical strikes with Overpower happen more often. This is going to happen even more, because we're going to take improved Overpower, increasing the crit chance of your Overpower by 50%. But the bread and butter of this build comes in the form of Taste for Blood. It's going to give your Rend a 100% chance to allow the use of Overpower, regardless of what the tooltip says, and increases the damage by 30%. This is going to mean you are going to be a crit machine. The point of your build will be to apply Rend first, and then spam Overpower. Your Overpower will crit, which will proc Deep Wounds, and then you could go in the talents like Trauma or even Blood Frenzy to capitalize on the bleeds you're applying on your target. Keep in mind, however, that if you do go with this build, Unrelenting Assault is paramount for your success. It will reduce the cooldown of Overpower by a whole 3 seconds and increase the damage by 20%. The talents you should be looking for at level 60 for the Rend and Overpower build will include things such as Feral Spirits in the enhancement tree, which is just a solid DPS cooldown overall. However, you could also consider Titan's Grip as well. If you somehow got a god build and you're just looking to show off, Bladestorm can always be good because it can actually proc Deep Wounds, and with the right build, you could do quite a lot of damage with it. Some other abilities to consider are Mortal Strike. Mortal Strike with Overpower and Rend is an incredibly potent combination because of the Wrecking Crew talent. Okay guys, the next one on the list is Raptor Strike and Mongoose Bite. Now, I have to say before I start, this is the weaker of all of the other melee builds that has been mentioned thus far. Except under one condition, which we will get into when we jump in-game. Now, Mongoose Bite and Raptor Strike are good because of the random legendary enchant for Mongoose Bite that I will put on the screen when we're in-game. It's also very strong because of a variety of talents that allow you to crit more often with these abilities. However, the true bread and butter of this build comes by having Tame Beast. Okay guys, so right off the bat, if you get Raptor Strike and Mongoose Bite, you're going to want the Savage Strikes talent in the Survival Hunter tree. This is going to increase the critical strike chance of your Raptor Strike and your Mongoose Bite by a whole 20%. Now, if you don't have Tame Pet, you will be significantly weaker than if you did. Some ways to supplement this would be if you also had Mongoose Bite, Raptor Strike, plus Heroic Strike, or if you had it with Sinister Strike, or if you had them on top of the Rend+Overpower combo. So this could be a supplementary part to a more powerful build. However, if you are somehow capable of nailing Raptor Strike, Mongoose Bite, and Tame Beast, you will be able to go into the Beast Mastery tree. Beast Mastery is incredibly good for this build, because it has Cobra Strikes. This is going to give you a 60% chance when you critically hit with Raptor Strike or Mongoose Bite to make your pet's next 2 special attacks critically hit. This is going to mean you're going to be focusing almost entirely on a pet-based build, but using the abilities you would have used anyway is going to facilitate that build and make it far stronger than any other player who's using a pet. Some other things to consider is when you hit level 60, you should go for Bestial Wrath. With Bestial Wrath taken, you should put your final 1 AE and 1 talent point into the Beast Within. This is going to allow for massive burst, and quite frankly, very few classes will be able to survive. If you have the proper defensives with this build, you will be able to destroy anybody. The reason I decided to make this is because one of the main questions I get asked regularly every single day when I log in is, Mcdoubles, will you look at my build? Mcdoubles, is this a good starting build? Mcdoubles, what do I get? I'm re-rolling for my abilities. What do I do? So I decided, why not just make a video on it? I'm starting with melee first, but if you guys enjoyed the video, I can continue and talk about the best caster builds, the best healing builds, and even the best tank builds out there. I hope you guys enjoyed once again, and if you did, make sure to give it a like and leave a comment in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Mcdoubles out.